One touch was all it took. The alien queen stirred to life. The cold, sterile air of the forgotten moon settled heavily on Marcus Pierce and his team as they made their way deeper into the ancient alien ship. The structure, dark and immense, had been buried for centuries beneath layers of dust and rock. The team had been selected for their expertise in xenobiology, archaeology, and alien technology, but no one had expected to find something this old, this powerful. Marcus, the lead scientist, walked carefully across the metal floor, his boots making faint, echoing sounds in the eerie silence. The light from their helmets flickered off strange metallic surfaces that hummed with energy, almost as if the ship itself were alive. Each step they took brought them closer to the central chamber, where the faint glow of bioluminescent symbols illuminated the path. "How much farther?" asked Dr. Eliza Kane, a biologist who had spent years studying alien life. She adjusted her glasses, her voice trembling with both fear and excitement. Marcus glanced at the map projected by his wrist communicator. "We're close, just around this corner." They reached a massive doorway, its surface adorned with intricate alien writing. Marcus stepped forward, running his gloved hand along the carvings. The symbols were alien to him, yet there was something familiar about them, like a feeling of recognition buried deep within his mind. As if he had always known they would find this place. "Marcus, be careful," Eliza warned, her voice barely above a whisper. "We still don't know what's inside." Marcus nodded, though he didn't share her worry. He had prepared for this moment for years. This was why they had come here, to uncover the unknown, to make history. He pushed the door open with a slight grunt, and the chamber beyond came into view. It was vast, larger than any structure they had ever encountered. The walls were lined with strange, dark blue panels that pulsed softly with light. In the center of the room stood a colossal form suspended in a shimmering stasis field, its outline barely visible through the distortion. The shape was unmistakable, even in the shadows. A giant alien queen. Eliza gasped, stepping back in awe. "Is that?" "It must be," Marcus muttered, his eyes widening. The alien queen's figure was larger than any creature he had ever seen, her body elegant yet imposing, with sleek exoskeletal armor and strange energy flowing around her. She was unlike anything in the known universe, yet she seemed familiar. There was an ancient power emanating from her, one that sent shivers down Marcus's spine. "This is what we came for," he said, his voice steady. "The key to unlocking an ancient empire." He stepped forward, his hands trembling slightly as he reached for the control panel next to the stasis field. The symbols on the panel were unlike any language he had seen, but his training kicked in. With a few taps, the system came to life and the symbols began to glow in response. "Marcus," Eliza warned, "are you sure about this?" He nodded. "We've already come this far. We need to know what she is, what she represents." With a deep breath, he pressed the final button. The chamber hummed with power, and the stasis field began to crackle and pulse. The alien queen's eyes fluttered open, glowing a brilliant green. The team froze, every sense heightened as the air thickened with energy. The queen's massive form stirred. Her eyes locked onto Marcus, piercing into his very soul. There was a moment of silence, a heavy pause before she moved. Slowly, gracefully, her limbs unfurled, stretching after centuries of sleep. The ship seemed to respond to her every movement, as if it were alive and at her command. Marcus felt a strange pull in his chest, an inexplicable connection to the being before him. His mind raced as he realized the truth. The alien queen was awakening, and they had been the ones to stir her from her ancient slumber. Her voice, when it came, was a low, echoing hum, barely audible at first. "Who awakens me?" Her words were not in any language Marcus had studied, but somehow he understood them. She spoke directly into his mind. I did," Marcus replied, his voice barely a whisper. He took a hesitant step forward, unsure whether he should move closer or retreat. "I'm Dr. Marcus Pierce. We came here to study, to understand." The queen's eyes studied him, her gaze unnervingly intelligent. Her lips parted as she seemed to take in his words, weighing them. Then a slow, deliberate smile formed on her face, though it was chilling in its complexity. "You awaken me," she repeated, her voice deepening with recognition. "You are not like the others, your touch. It stirs something within me." The room seemed to shift, and Marcus could feel the weight of her presence growing. The entire chamber pulsed with her energy. Her power was immeasurable, ancient beyond comprehension, yet somehow she had chosen to awaken for him. The others stood frozen in place, unsure whether to run or remain still. But Marcus didn't move. He couldn't. There was something about this moment that held him captive, something that reached deep into him and refused to let go. I I didn't mean to, he stammered, the words spilling out before he could stop them. I didn't know what I was doing. The Queen's smile faded into a more serious expression. You have touched me, human, and for that there is no turning back. Marcus's heart raced. He was standing at the precipice of a discovery that could alter the future of humanity, and perhaps the galaxy itself. The Queen's power was unmatched, but so was her presence. He could feel her mind, ancient and vast, pressing against his own. It was as if she had been waiting for him. Eliza's voice cut through the tension. Marcus, we need to leave now. But it was too late. The moment had passed, and the alien queen had been reawakened. There was no going back. The future of humanity had just become intertwined with the fate of this ancient, powerful being. The queen's gaze never left Marcus as she spoke again, her voice now resonating with power. You have awoken me. Now you must face the consequences. Marcus could only stare at her, unsure of what was coming next, but knowing, deep down, that the universe had just changed forever. The room was filled with a heavy silence, the kind that presses down on you, making it hard to breathe. Marcus couldn't take his eyes off the alien queen. She was awake, fully alive, and her presence was overwhelming. Her gaze seemed to pierce through him, deep into his very being. It was as if she could see everything, his thoughts, his fears, his past, and all of it left him feeling exposed. Her eyes, glowing with an eerie green light, watched him with a level of intelligence that made him feel small, insignificant. She moved, her massive form shifting with an unsettling grace, and the ship around them seemed to react, responding to her like it was a living organism. The walls hummed with energy, and the once dormant ship began to feel alive, the air thickening with power. Eliza, standing just behind Marcus, finally found her voice. What do we do now?" she whispered, her eyes wide with fear and awe. Marcus didn't answer her immediately. He was lost in the Queen's gaze. There was a strange connection between them, one that he didn't understand. It was as if their souls were bound by an invisible thread, drawn together by something far more powerful than anything he had ever experienced. You have awakened me," the Queen said again, her voice now clearer, resonating through the chamber like a deep, otherworldly hum. "I have waited so long, and now you stand before me." Marcus swallowed hard, his throat dry. "I didn't mean to," he said, his voice shaky. "We came here to study, to learn about your species. We didn't expect this." The Queen's smile faded, replaced by an expression that was almost solemn. "It was no accident, human. You were meant to awaken me. You are the key." Marcus didn't know how to respond. The weight of her words hung in the air like a thick fog. He felt as if the ground beneath him was shifting, as if everything he had ever known was crumbling away. Eliza stepped forward, her voice trembling. "We need to leave this. This is too dangerous." She looked at Marcus, but he didn't move. Her words seemed to bounce off him, lost in the presence of the Queen. The Queen turned her head slowly, her long, sleek body following the motion. "You wish to leave?" she asked, her voice soft but commanding. "You cannot simply turn away from this. You have already touched the heart of the Empire." Marcus felt a shiver run down his spine. The Queen's words were not just a statement, they were a command. The rest of the team stood frozen, uncertain, their faces pale and wide-eyed. They had come to study, to explore, but now they stood at the edge of something much bigger than any of them had anticipated. Something dangerous. "Marcus," Eliza said again, her voice more desperate this time. "We have to go. It's too dangerous to stay here." Marcus finally tore his gaze away from the Queen and looked at his team. They were scared, and with good reason. This was no ordinary alien. This was an ancient being, something that had been sealed away for centuries, if not longer. And now she was awake, and they were the ones who had brought her back. "I can't just leave her," Marcus said quietly, more to himself than to anyone else. He turned back to the Queen. "What do you want from us?" he asked, his voice filled with a mixture of curiosity and fear. The Queen's eyes softened, though they still glowed with an intense light. "I want nothing from you, human. I seek only freedom and the return of my empire. You are the first to awaken me, and for that you will play a role in what comes next." Marcus felt a cold chill sweep through him. The Queen's words hung in the air like an unspoken promise. What role did he play, and what was coming next? One of the team members, Dr. Julian Walker, stepped forward cautiously. "Are you saying we've awakened you to help you?" Take over the galaxy? His voice trembled as he spoke the words, but it was clear that fear was taking hold of him. The queen looked at him, her expression unreadable. Take over? No, she replied. I seek to restore what was lost. My empire was once vast, stretching across worlds, creating peace and order, but betrayal destroyed it. I was put into stasis, left to sleep until the time came for me to rise again. Marcus felt the weight of her words. She wasn't here to conquer. She wasn't here to destroy. She was here to rebuild something long gone. You want to rebuild your empire? Marcus asked cautiously. The queen nodded slowly. Yes, but I cannot do it alone. I need your help, Marcus Pierce. You are the one who awoke me, and for that, you are now part of this. You will help me, or you will leave and never return. The choice is yours. The room felt smaller as the weight of her words settled in. Marcus knew that leaving was not an option anymore. They had disturbed something that should not have been disturbed, and now they had to deal with the consequences. I don't know how I can help you, Marcus admitted, his voice uncertain. We don't even understand your technology, your species. How can we possibly help you rebuild an empire? The queen tilted her head slightly, studying him. You do not need to understand everything, she said softly. What you need is faith. Faith that together we can bring back what was lost. You and I are bound now, Marcus Pierce. My future is tied to yours. Marcus felt his heart race. He had known this moment would come, the moment when they would face the unknown and have to make a decision that would shape the rest of their lives. But nothing had prepared him for this. Nothing had prepared him for the alien queen, whose power and presence were more than he could comprehend. What happens if we refuse? One of the other team members, Dr. Natasha Morrow, asked, her voice shaky but determined. The queen's gaze turned cold, her eyes narrowing. Then you will leave and you will never speak of me again. You will be forgotten. There was no warmth in her tone. It was a warning, a promise. And Marcus knew, deep down, that refusing her offer was not something anyone in the room could survive. The team exchanged uneasy glances. Marcus didn't want to be the one to decide for them, but he knew that the moment they had awakened the queen, they had sealed their fate. There was no going back. I don't know what to do, Marcus said quietly, more to himself than to anyone else. His mind was racing, trying to process everything that had just happened. This wasn't just about studying alien artifacts anymore. This was about something much bigger. Something that could change the course of history. The queen spoke again, her voice calm and certain. You will help me, or you will leave. Marcus took a deep breath. There was no choice. He knew what had to be done, and for better or worse, he was going to see it through. Whatever this alien queen wanted, whatever she needed from him, he would give it. Because in that moment, he realized something terrifying. He was already bound to her, and there was no escaping it. The team stood frozen, each member processing the weight of the alien queen's words. The queen's presence was suffocating. She stood before them, immense and powerful, her energy radiating through the ship like a storm waiting to break. Marcus could feel it in his chest, the subtle hum of her power, the magnetic pull of her will. He couldn't escape it, no matter how hard he tried. Eliza, her face pale with fear, was the first to speak. Marcus, you can't be serious. You don't know what she's capable of. Her voice wavered, but her eyes were filled with concern, not just for herself, but for him. Marcus took a deep breath, trying to calm the whirlwind of thoughts that raged in his mind. He had never expected anything like this. The discovery of the alien queen was a scientific breakthrough, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. He had awakened something ancient, something vast and dangerous. I know, Eliza, he replied, his voice steady, though his heart raced. But we can't just leave. We've already disturbed something this powerful. It's too late for that. Are you suggesting we help her? Eliza's eyes widened in disbelief. Marcus turned to face her. What choice do we have? His voice softened. She's not just a threat. She's part of something much bigger, something we don't fully understand, but we can't turn away, not now. Eliza's expression softened, but the fear was still there. But Marcus, what happens if we agree? What happens to us if she decides we're of no use? The queen's voice broke through their conversation, calm but carrying an underlying force that made them all stop in their tracks. Your fear is justified, human, but know this, you will not survive if you choose to oppose me. You will be forgotten by history, erased from the universe's memory. The threat in her voice was clear, yet there was no anger in it, just the cold certainty of a being who had existed for eons. Marcus couldn't help but feel the weight of her words. She wasn't bluffing. She had the power to destroy them all, and she knew it. But it wasn't just her power that fascinated him. It was her history, her legacy. She had been a queen, a ruler of an empire that stretched across galaxies. She was a being beyond human comprehension, yet here she was, standing before him, offering him a place in her future. He didn't know what the right decision was, but he couldn't turn away. Not now. "What do you need from us?" Marcus asked, stepping forward, his voice quiet but resolute. The queen's eyes narrowed, a flicker of something resembling amusement in them. "You will assist me in rebuilding my empire. My species was betrayed, scattered to the farthest corners of the galaxy. I was left to sleep, my people forgotten, their power lost. But you have awakened me. You will help me restore what was lost." Marcus's mind raced. Rebuild an empire? How could they possibly help her do that? They were just a group of scientists, explorers, far from warriors or conquerors. But as he looked at the queen, the undeniable truth hit him. She wasn't asking them to fight wars for her. She needed something else. Something he didn't understand yet, but he could feel it in his bones. This was bigger than any of them. "I don't know how we can help you," Marcus said, his voice filled with uncertainty. "We don't have the resources, the knowledge, we're just—" "You are human," the queen interrupted, her voice as smooth as silk but carrying an undeniable command. "And that is enough. Your species is the key to everything." Marcus felt a pang of confusion. "The key to what?" She tilted her head slightly, studying him. "The power of my species lies dormant, scattered among the stars. Your kind possesses the potential to harness it, to awaken what has been lost. The technology, the knowledge, you have it within you, Marcus Pierce. I can see it. You are the catalyst." The words hung in the air, and Marcus felt his pulse quicken. The idea seemed impossible, but the queen's certainty was almost hypnotic. She was offering them a role in something far greater than anything they had ever dreamed of, a chance to unlock the secrets of the universe, to rebuild an ancient empire. But what would that cost? And what would it mean for humanity? His thoughts were interrupted as Dr. Julian Walker, one of the younger members of the team, stepped forward hesitantly. "What happens if we refuse?" His voice was shaking, but there was a defiance in his eyes that Marcus could see. "What happens to us if we just walk away?" The queen's expression shifted, her gaze hardening. "If you refuse, you will leave, but you will never return. You will be forgotten. Your world, your species, will cease to exist in my memory. You will be as nothing." The words were chilling, and for a moment the room was silent. Everyone was looking at Marcus, waiting for him to make a decision. They knew the risks, they knew the consequences, but they also knew there was no going back. Marcus took a step forward, his heart pounding in his chest. "We'll help you," he said, his voice firm, though inside he was still unsure of what that would mean. "But on one condition." The queen raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What is your condition, human?" Marcus took a deep breath. "We need to understand more. We need to know everything about what you're asking of us. We can't just follow blindly. We need to be prepared." The queen studied him for a moment and then nodded. "Very well, I will share what you seek. But know this, Marcus Pierce, you have already chosen. There is no turning back." Marcus felt a heavy weight settle on his shoulders. There was no turning back, but as he stood there facing the queen, something inside him shifted. This was the moment. The moment when everything changed. The queen stepped forward, her massive form moving with a grace that seemed at odds with her size. "I will show you what is needed," she said, her voice soft but filled with power. "But first you must prove your loyalty. I will test you, Marcus Pierce, you and your people. Only then will I reveal everything." Marcus nodded slowly. He didn't fully understand what she meant by testing them, but he was certain of one thing: there was no other choice. They were already part of her story, whether they liked it or not. The queen turned and gestured toward the far wall of the chamber. The panels on the wall shimmered, and a holographic map of the galaxy appeared, glowing with ancient symbols. "This is the galaxy as it was," the queen said, her voice distant as she gazed at the projection. "This is what we had before my empire fell." The map stretched across the room, showing planets, stars, and vast territories that Marcus could barely comprehend. It was like looking at a map of the entire universe, and it left him breathless. "This," the queen continued, "is what we will rebuild, and you will help me." The words hung in the air, and Marcus felt a surge of determination rise within him. He didn't know exactly what they would face, what sacrifices they would have to make, but he knew one thing for certain: his life had just changed forever. The tension in the chamber grew thicker with every passing moment. Marcus could feel the queen's eyes on him, watching his every move. The weight of her expectations was heavy, and he could sense the pressure building. She had offered them a chance to be part of something immense, but she had also made it clear that they had no choice but to comply. The holographic map of the galaxy shimmered in front of him, glowing with alien symbols that seemed to shift and change before his eyes. Each symbol represented something: worlds, empires, or perhaps the lost pieces of a forgotten civilization. He couldn't understand it all, but he could feel the power in the air, and he knew that they were standing on the edge of a precipice. The Queen's voice broke the silence. "This is what you have awakened, Marcus Pierce. This is the weight of the choice you have made." Her words echoed in the chamber, and Marcus felt his pulse quicken. There was no turning back now. They had made their decision. They had agreed to help her to restore an empire that had been lost to time. But what did that mean? What was required of them? "I will show you what you must do," the Queen continued. "But first you must prove yourselves." The tension in the room was palpable. The team, who had been standing in stunned silence, exchanged nervous glances. None of them had expected this. They had thought they were simply explorers, scientists, uncovering the mysteries of a long-dead alien race. Now they were caught in something far bigger, something beyond their understanding. Marcus took a deep breath. He had to be the one to lead them. He had to keep his head clear and make sure that they didn't let fear take control. This was the moment where everything would change. There was no going back. "What do you mean by prove ourselves?" he asked, his voice steady, though his mind was racing. "What do you want us to do?" The Queen's eyes glowed with an intensity that sent a chill down his spine. "You must prove your loyalty to me, to the Empire. Only then will I reveal what must be done." Marcus hesitated, his mind racing. Prove their loyalty? What did that even mean? They were scientists, explorers. They weren't soldiers or warriors. They had no experience with power struggles or ancient empires. But the Queen had made it clear that this wasn't just about exploring a long-forgotten race. This was about something far greater, a chance to restore an empire that had been destroyed, to rebuild something that had once been a force in the galaxy. "What kind of test are you talking about?" Eliza asked, her voice filled with both caution and curiosity. "What do you want us to do?" The Queen's smile was cold, her gaze unwavering. "You will go to the place where it all began, the homeworld of my people. There you will face the trials that will determine whether or not you are worthy of assisting me. Only those who pass the trials will be allowed to help me rebuild." Marcus felt a knot form in his stomach. The trials. He didn't know what they would entail, but he knew one thing: they would be dangerous. There was no way the Queen would make it easy. She had already shown them the depths of her power, and now she was demanding their loyalty. "Where is this place?" Marcus asked, his voice steady despite the fear that gripped him. The Queen gestured to the holographic map, and the image shifted. A new symbol appeared, glowing brightly in the center of the galaxy. It was a small planet, far from any known human colonies. The planet was shrouded in mystery, its surface hidden beneath thick clouds of dust and radiation. "This is the homeworld of my people," the Queen said, her voice filled with a sense of reverence. "It was once a thriving world, the heart of an empire, but now it is a dead world, a place of ruins and forgotten memories. The trials are hidden there, scattered across the landscape. Only those who are worthy will survive." Marcus stared at the image, feeling a sense of dread wash over him. The planet seemed desolate, inhospitable. Yet the Queen was asking them to go there to face whatever dangers lay in the ruins of her fallen empire. "We'll need to prepare," he said, his voice calm despite the fear that gnawed at him. "We can't just go in blindly. We need to know what we're facing." The Queen's eyes flickered with something resembling amusement. "You will not be prepared for what awaits you. That is part of the test." Marcus clenched his fists, fighting the urge to turn away. This was madness. They were being asked to venture into the unknown, to face challenges that could kill them all. But there was no other choice. They had already made their decision. They had already awakened the Queen. Eliza stepped forward, her voice firm. "We don't even know what the trials are. How are we supposed to survive if we don't know what we're walking into?" The Queen regarded her with an unreadable expression. "The trials are meant to test your worthiness. Only those who are capable of helping me will pass. The rest will perish. You must prove that you are strong enough to face what lies ahead." Marcus glanced at his team, each of them looking back at him, their expressions a mix of fear and uncertainty. He knew they were all scared. He was scared, too. But there was no turning back. They had come too far. They had stirred something powerful, something ancient, and now they had to face the consequences. "We'll do it," Marcus said, his voice steady. "We'll go to this planet, we'll face whatever trials await us. But we do this together. No one is left behind." The Queen's expression softened, though her eyes still glowed with an unsettling intensity. "Very well, you will go, you will face the trials, and you will either succeed or fail. There is no middle ground." Marcus nodded, a sense of determination rising within him. They had no choice but to follow through. If they wanted to help the Queen rebuild her empire, if they wanted to understand what they had awakened, they had to pass the trials. There was no other way. As the Queen gestured toward the ship's control panel, the map shifted again, showing the path to the planet. The image of the desolate world loomed larger, filling the entire chamber. Marcus felt a mix of fear and resolve settle within him. They were about to embark on a journey into the unknown, a journey that could cost them everything. "Prepare yourselves," the Queen said, her voice cold and commanding. "The trials await." Marcus took one last look at the Queen, her imposing figure standing at the center of the room, and then turned to his team. He saw the fear in their eyes, but he also saw something else: determination. They were in this together, and they would face whatever came their way. With a deep breath, Marcus motioned for them to follow him. The journey to the homeworld of the Queen's people was about to begin, and they had no idea what awaited them. But they would face it together, no matter the cost. The atmosphere in the ship was tense as Marcus and his team prepared for the journey to the alien Queen's homeworld. The Queen had given them no time to waste. The planet they were heading to was in the far reaches of the galaxy, far from any human colony. It was a desolate place, the Queen had said, a world ravaged by time and betrayal. Yet it was here that the trials would take place, and it was here that their fate would be decided. Marcus sat in the control room, his hands steady on the console. He could hear the hum of the ship's engines as the crew moved around him, preparing for the long journey ahead. Eliza was double-checking their supplies, while Dr. Julian Walker and Dr. Natasha Mora worked on calibrating the equipment. Everyone had their tasks, but there was a heaviness in the air, a weight that none of them could shake off. "We'll be entering the planet's atmosphere in about 30 minutes, Eliza said, her voice calm but tinged with the same nervousness that Marcus felt. "The Queen said it was dangerous, that the planet is uninhabitable. I can't help but wonder what we're really walking into." Marcus glanced at her, his face set in a determined expression. "We don't have a choice. We're in this together and we'll face whatever comes our way. We have to." Eliza nodded, though her eyes betrayed her fear. "I know. This isn't what I signed up for. We were here to study, to make discoveries, not to fight for our lives." "I know," Marcus replied, his voice softening. "But sometimes discovery comes with risks. We've already awakened the Queen. Now we have to see it through." The ship shook slightly as they entered the planet's atmosphere. The view outside the ship's windows was obscured by thick clouds of dust and radiation. The once pristine surface of the planet was now a barren wasteland, the signs of ancient destruction clear even from space. Marcus felt a cold shiver run down his spine as he stared out into the nothingness. This was the heart of the Queen's empire, a place of untold power and loss. As the ship descended closer to the planet's surface, the tension among the crew grew. There was no turning back now. The trials awaited them, but what would they be? What challenges would the Queen make them face? And would they survive them? The ship finally landed with a soft thud, sending vibrations through the metal floor. The sound of the engines powering down filled the room, and for a moment there was nothing but silence. Marcus took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. He had to be strong for the team. They had already come this far. There was no turning back now. "Everyone ready?" he asked, standing up and looking around at the team. They all nodded, though none of them seemed completely confident. They were in this together, but that didn't make the unknown any less terrifying. "I'll lead the way," Marcus said, trying to sound more certain than he felt. "Stay close, and remember, no matter what happens, we stick together. We're a team." With that, they gathered their gear and made their way to the airlock. The Queen had warned them that the planet was dangerous, that the trials were meant to test their worthiness. What that meant, they still didn't know, but they had no choice but to face it. The airlock opened, and the harsh wind of the planet's surface rushed in, carrying with it the scent of decay and ruin. The landscape was nothing like anything Marcus had ever seen. The ground was cracked and dry, with jagged rock formations scattered across the barren expanse. The sky was a sickly orange, the sun barely visible through the thick clouds of dust and ash. It looked like a world that had once been full of life, but now it was nothing more than a ghost of its former self. "This place, it's a graveyard, Doctor." Walker muttered, his voice filled with awe and disbelief. "We're here to face the trials," Marcus said, his voice firm. "Let's move out." The team stepped out onto the planet's surface, the ground crunching beneath their boots. The air was thin and the atmosphere was harsh, but they had the equipment to survive. Still, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. The planet felt alive in a way he couldn't explain, as though it was waiting for them to make the wrong move. As they moved farther from the ship, the landscape began to change. The jagged rocks gave way to ruins, massive stone structures that had once been grand but were now crumbling with age. The architecture was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. It was ancient, but there was a certain beauty to it, despite the destruction. The team reached the first set of ruins, and that's when they saw it. A massive stone archway, etched with symbols similar to the ones the Queen had shown them on the holographic map. It stood tall and imposing, a monument to something long lost. Marcus stopped in front of it, his eyes scanning the symbols. They were familiar, yet alien at the same time. They seemed to pulse with energy, and as he stepped closer, he felt a strange sensation run through him, a connection to something far beyond his understanding. "This is it," Marcus said, turning to the team. "The first trial, the Queen said we'd be tested. This is where it begins." He took a deep breath and stepped forward, crossing the threshold of the archway. As soon as he did, the ground beneath them rumbled. The air seemed to shift, and the stone walls of the arch began to glow with an eerie light. "Eliza, Walker, Natasha, stay close," Marcus said, his voice steady but filled with tension. The team followed him, their eyes wide with fear and awe. The air around them seemed to hum with energy, and the ground continued to shake as they walked deeper into the ruins. They had no idea what to expect, but they knew one thing for certain: they were not alone. As they reached the center of the archway, a voice boomed from nowhere. It was deep and resonant, filling the air around them. "Who dares enter the trials of the fallen empire?" the voice asked, its tone both ancient and powerful. "Only those who prove their worth may pass. Fail, and you will be lost to the void." Marcus's heart raced. This was it, the first trial. They had no idea what was coming, but they had no choice but to face it. They were already committed. "We are here to prove ourselves," Marcus called out, his voice steady despite the fear that gripped him. "We are here to help rebuild the empire." There was a long pause, and then the voice responded. "Then prove your strength, prove your loyalty. The trials will begin." Suddenly, the ground beneath them cracked open, and the air around them was filled with a blinding light. Marcus raised his arms to shield his eyes, but it was no use. The light consumed everything, and they were plunged into darkness.